Okay, so this is our final video, and in this video we're going to look at how did Ignaz Semmelweis change the way we look at disease. Now, before we start, I want you to think back to the 1850s if you can. Now today, we can see in incredible detail the structure of the pathogens that we try to stop infecting people, so we know what E. coli looks like, and we know what a virus looks like. However, in the 1850s, people could not see any of this because there was not the technology to view bacteria or viruses. And what were the implications of this? Well, it meant that nobody knew about the transmission of diseases or how infections were spread. So pathogens just simply weren't known about. And this doctor, Ignaz Semmelweis, thought he came up with a solution to a common problem in hospitals, and this was known as child bed fever. And in the 1850s, lots of women would die a few days after giving birth to a child, and nobody knew why. Some people thought it was God's punishment for women giving birth out of wedlock, so not much was done about it. However, this doctor recognized that some of his medical interns would go straight from dissecting a dead human corpse to helping with childbirth without washing their hands in between. So if we look at it today, we would know that this hand would be covered in millions of pathogens coming from this dead corpse and then going straight into this woman's body as the doctor is helping with childbirth. And that would cause childbed fever, which would ultimately cause the woman to die a few days later after giving childbirth. So what did Semmelweis do? Firstly, he ordered all of his medical interns to stop doing this and wash their hands in between surgeries. And as a result of that, he noticed over time that the rates of childbed fever declined over time and the deaths from it decreased. So if that's there and we have time there and we have deaths, death here. So over time, the rate of death declined as his medical interns washed his hands. And so, although he could not see the pathogens which were causing this fever, he came up with a solution to stop the transmission of the pathogen. So you would think the doctors would be very pleased he'd come up with this idea and he'd become widely recognized. Well, quite the opposite. Because people could not see pathogens, and because his ideas were suggesting that doctors were killing people by being the source of transmission of the fever, he was mocked, and his ideas were very badly criticized during the time. And unfortunately, the thought that doctors were ignoring him ultimately caused him to break down, and he died in his mid-40s, feeling a bit of a failure. So it's quite a sad tale. However, as a result of his actions, he helped to change the way we look at disease because he recognized that through being unclean, through not washing our hands, and from transmitting a pathogen from one source to another, we ultimately spread disease. And now we know today that in hospitals it is very important to wash hands even between looking at patients without operating on them. And this is very critical considering today there are many diseases and pathogens such as MRSA, MRSA, GCSE, and this pathogen is very resistant to antibiotics, which would kill most pathogens. And so it is very, very important to be hygienic and protect yourselves from transmitting pathogens from one person to another. This sums up all of the learning objectives. So for this topic, we have learnt what are pathogens, how they cause disease, how Semmelweis change the way we think about them. We've also learnt how they try to get into our body and how we stop them, and how white blood cells protect us from disease. So these videos cover every aspect of this topic, and next we will look at vaccination techniques.